Well, I fried the motor on my tubing roller, my little Harbor Freight tooling roller. And so I'm waiting for a new motor to show up. And while I'm doing that, well, I may as well just put some more chips on, right? So that's what we're doing. Okay, we got a 2-inch piece of tubing 065 wall, which is fairly thin, but still it's 2 inches, and it pretty much maxes out this little Harbor Freight tubing bender, but it does the job. So we're continuing to run it back and forth, little bit at a time, and we're going to bring this circle all the way in, and probably we'll get two, maybe three runs out of this before that motor heats up. And that's a brand new motor, so we're gonna take care of it. You can see me feeling it, make sure that it doesn't get too hot, and it's starting to warm up. But I think we're gonna get one more pull out of it. Now Jason's up there keeping this tubing straight as it goes further and further into this curve. Okay, well, we let the motor cool down for about 45 minutes, and now we're back at it. And Jason's trying to keep this thing straight, but it's not easy. 2 inches tends to go where it wants to go. But if we're starting to get an arch in it, that's good. Now what's happening is it's going up into the ceiling of the shop, and so we're having to kind of maneuver it around rafters. Okay, we let that motor cool down another 45 minutes or so. Now we're up, really up in the rafters, and we're having to kind of maneuver around um, all kinds of different things that this thing's hitting. But it seems to be working, and we're getting more angle out of it. So we just keep moving forward. Okay, so I've moved the camera around so you can actually see how we're up in the rafters and having to maneuver around different different pieces of steel in order to get this thing to actually work. So let's just keep cranking here and see what we can come up with. Now the end that's going up now is going to be caught in between two rafters. So then we've got to figure out how to deal with that. But eventually it will work. Definitely one nice thing about having the Harbor Freight tubing bender is it's reasonably light and it can be moved around without too much effort. I was looking at a much heavier duty one that I still am looking at, but we won't be able to move it around as easily. Okay, well, Jason's guiding the direction of the piece of tubing. You can see in a second here that here comes the other side coming around, and we almost have a circle. Okay, well, we got that thing out of the rafters at least, and so now we get to move it around. It's free of all of the superstructure of the building. And so now it's just a matter of taking it down to probably, I'm hoping to get it to a 2-foot radius. And then we'll go from there. Now, the problem is that I'm using, it's kind of a Harbor Freight pipe cutter. And it's okay, it works. It's just that it heats up like a son of a gun just in one of these passes. And so we do it and then set it aside for a half hour, 45 minutes, let it cool down, do a second one, then step away for another hour, 45 minutes, and then do a third one. And now we're down to about, I don't know how many, maybe 7 or 8 passes. It has to go slow. And then, I'd say we got probably another 5 or 6 to get down to what I want. And I'll show you what the plan is. So you may have noticed that I'm leaving this whole front section of the Dragon kind of without anything there, and that's what this pipe is all about. And we're going to bring you down to the sketch that I'm kind of working for. Now, this is not the Dragon I'm going to make, but if you look in close there, you'll see on the front of the Dragon are these ribs, and that's what this 2-inch pipe is going to represent, this kind of ribbing, maybe even more of a shield. So we've got about 8 or 9 foot radius right now, that but I want to come in closer. More like a 2-foot radius would be optimal if I can do it, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, well, it's the next morning, and it turns out to be a Saturday morning, and Jason, Norb, Jeremiah, nor Cam are here, so I get the whole shop to myself, which these days doesn't happen that much. So I'm kind of tickled pink to be in the shop making all the noise that's going to happen. Yes! So I pulled down on the hydraulic ram, or it's actually just a hydraulic jack, and that's given us a little bit more. And you can see as this thing starts to spin around that the tubing is now has a better radius, or a smaller radius. And if we just keep going, we'll just go back and forth a few times. Okay, we're going to take a break here. The As you can probably guess, as we go into a tighter and tighter circle, the actual metal gets harder and harder and more springy. And so we've had to cut these two sections off in order to allow the circle to get smaller. And now the second section I cut off just a second ago, you can see me kind of looking at it up there. What I did is I cut a section off to see if I've got the radius small enough, and I didn't. So I want to go down just a little further. Well, actually, probably another foot or two to about, I'm hoping, 24 inches. But we don't know. Okay, well, that was a pretty radical bend there. You can see it just made a much smaller circle, and that metal is now real springy, so it's really hard to kind of separate it. I actually had to get a crowbar in there to separate it enough to get around the roller itself, but it's separated, and now we've got a roll that I think we're going to be able to live with. Okay, maybe we just go a little further. Why not? There you go. Another 2 or 3 inches. Yeah, that's got a much better curve to it. I think we're going to get something out of that. Okay, here I'm going to cut off the end that couldn't get bent because you can't bend the whole piece of material. And now I'm cutting a test piece to see what that's going to look like. Let's take it over and see what's going to happen. Oh yeah, that's much better. Okay, so we've got I'm measuring segments so I can cut this thing out. There we go. And we're going to get about 20 segments out of this. So we just cut half of it there, and now I can get it out. So I've cut 2 segments at an angle so that I have this kind of pointed V shape, and now I'm putting it up there and testing it out and see what it's going to look like. And I kind of like what's happening. So we've got a couple of the superstructure pieces in the way. So I just gone and turned on the torches, and we're going to cut that stuff away so we can get this thing in there. And of course, I put my back to the camera like an idiot. But hey, I'm focused. Oh yeah, that looks like a pretty good angle. Looks like it's going to fit pretty good. I've just got it tacked together, so I have a lot of adjustment to do. But let's give that a try. I'm going to put a second one in there. And, well, we just had to, there's that little line that kind of gives me a center line. And so I had to come back in and weld that. Now we're just trimming out some excess metal so that I can bend this out. You can see that. And get this thing just about right. Oh, much better. We got light. Yeah, that looks good. All right, so we got that going. Trim a little bit more, and then just fine tuning. Oh, I forgot to tell you, it's Monday morning, and the guys have shown up, and they're working on other projects, money-making projects, while I'm just dinking around over here having a hell of a good time. Okay, we've got 3 in, and we're starting to create a pattern here that's looking pretty good. These are all just tacked in so that I can adjust them or move them around or take them back out. But so far it's looking pretty good. Okay, at first I was cutting it with the torch, and then I realized, wait a second, I've got a metal cutting chop saw. Why am I not using it? It's like, oh, this is way too easy. Okay, I cut a pretty radical angle on both of those segments, probably, I don't know, 55, 60 degrees. But it kind of creates that nice point that I have created here. And so now I just tack that front piece in just so I can still open it up or close it, and then take it over to the sculpture itself. You can see I put that second one in, but I went back and ground out that first one because it really needs to be on the very point to be able to adjust it open and closed. Now you see that 1/4 inch lattice work kind of in there, and that's just guides to tell me which way I want the metal to lay in there, so I can get that little twist in the neck that I'm looking for. But unfortunately, some of them are in the way, so we're going to have to chop them out and move them around a bit in order to get more of these segments in. So I just cut that out and heated this other side, pushed it back, and at some point or another I came back in and welded a little segment in that to keep that thing in place. I mean, to keep it strong. Okay, one last segment to put in here, and I'm pretty well done in for the day. It looks fairly easy, but there's a lot of pushing and pulling and making stuff fit and leaning down and digging under and welding, and way too much for this 76-year-old body to handle for more than 2 or 3 hours at a time. But we'll put this one last piece in, and and it's starting to look pretty good. I'm pretty pleased. Check in next week, next Saturday, and we will go continue the process.